Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome back to another book review. And this one, I was really happy because I could actually make this work for a readathon, and that is Projection by Tabatha Shipley. This is YA sci-fi, and I used it to fulfill the North American sci-fi prompt for the Tome Infinity readathon, and I was super happy that when I could fit a review book into my readathons. And this one, really intrigued me with the premise, but the premise also made me nervous. This is about a world not too far into the future where basically everyone is connected even more to technology, quite literally. Everyone has what is called an NFC plant, and at the top of my head, I can't remember what that's called, neuro something. But you have this little chip that is placed in your wrist, and this allows you to connect instantly with all this technology. You can play music in your head. You can actually share videos of the things you see on your phone. And as a result, most people barely even type anymore. You can actually think the words and they'll come out on these projectors. And this young girl, Emma, who I believe is 15 or 16 in this book, begins having a chip malfunction to the point where her most embarrassing thoughts and fantasies, because yes, your fantasies can be projected, end up just like popping up on the phones and projectors and even digital menus around her. And she has no idea what's causing it, and it's a little freaky. I love the concept of that. That's one of those fun sci-fi concepts. And the world wasn't too different from ours. Like, they still had smartphones, and like they still had computers. They were just in computers that like interfaced with the chip. And like there were still cars and stuff. And they actually did like take notes by hand, which at first glance, I was like, well, would they still take notes by hand? But then I also remembered that there's been research done that taking notes by hand actually helps you learn better. It actually helps you like process information more than just copying it down verbatim by typing. So like I could still see handwriting notes going and other little things like that. But the one thing that I was really iffy about, even as much as I love this premise, was, is this going to get preachy? Because that premise, while it sounds awesome, also sounds like the metaphor for, are you posting too much online? And I was really nervous about it, even though, like, you're not always posting everything online, and half the stuff that, she accidentally had shared wasn't things that she would post. And it turns out, no, that's not the theme. And I would love to tell you what the theme or like the thesis of this book is. But unfortunately, it's related to a major plot point, a major spoiler. And it was a lot more in depth than I was expecting coming out of a super short YA sci-fi novella. But the suspense is ramped up pretty quickly because, obviously the chip starts malfunctioning at the beginning of the book, and it's not going to be solved 10 pages in. And so the problem keeps growing and growing. And when you find out the issues behind it are much more maybe sinister than you thought. And I loved that added element. I loved that added like suspense of, oh crap, there might be bad guys. Ugh. Like, it was awesome. The one downside and the one thing that kept this from being a straight 5-star is the world itself outside of the technology is pretty stereotypical. Thankfully, there's no I'm not like other girlsing on Emma's part. She has two friends, her best friend Bella and her on-again, off-again boyfriend Tyler, who's been her friend since they were in 3rd grade. So it's a really tight trio, and I loved the interplay between them. The friendship was really well, for me at least, like shown. And I like that because when you present pre-made friendships, it can be kind of iffy. But I definitely believed a lot of the interplay, and it definitely felt like she had people on her side. I will say her mom fell into the YA mom category, which is, she wasn't dead. Like, she was there, but like not as much effect on the plot. But I like, maybe this is just me, but I always tend to like judge books based on the standards, and like parents in YA not being a big part of the plot is standard. But the other thing is like a lot of the other characters are a little bit two-dimensional, generic popular guys, generic popular girls and that kind of thing. However, the more I thought about it, like, yeah, I kept it from being a 5-star, but like, that's not the point of this book. This isn't a character study. This is a what if situation and has a deeper thesis. So when you're reading it for the sake of that, it reads a lot well. And I also liked that because this book is short, there's not a lot in the way of any like extra subplots. Almost everything, virtually everything in here ties back to the main conflict of technology breaking down and what's causing it and what's wrong with Emma and can she fix it. All of it ties back into that, so we don't have like an entire subplot somewhere else, which I really appreciated, because in a book this short, I feel like anything extra probably wouldn't have been resolved the best. The ending wasn't totally wrapped up. There's still some threads that could be picked at if Tabatha Shipley really wanted to do a sequel. But personally, for me, I think this works as is. And again, I really would like to talk about the theme because it goes so much deeper than you think it's going to. The writing style was... The dialogue was slightly clunky in places, but not the most expository thing I've ever seen. And for the most part... well, let me look here. Do we have... Yes, we do have contractions, which for me is like my number one go-to, is it clunky expository dialogue, is... do they speak in contractions? And they do. So, yay for that. I liked that there were some other things that focused... now that I'm thinking about it, there's one plot point that I don't know if they ever explained it. No, I guess it has an explanation. I'm just thinking out loud. Sorry. I just realized there's one plot point early in the book that's a mystery, and I can't remember if it got resolved or not, or if it like half got resolved. But that's more on me. I read this in a day. It's very quick. The chapters are fairly short. The entire thing is 176 pages long, so I think this counts as a novella. I'm more used to counting things as a novella based on their word count for like querying purposes. I don't know like what page number counts. I know that the Tome Infinity Readathon only considers it a novella if it's under 150 pages, so that's why I couldn't count this for that challenge, and I was really bummed. But I appreciated that it was so succinct and that, it's short, but it was focused. It cut off any, extra stuff. And yes, the world around it was slightly generic, but it was really about the technology and the suspense behind it and what happened. So this is more of a book for people who love concepts and plots than character studies. But I appreciated that. And more than anything, I also loved that I could read this in a day and it read fast enough. I believe I was at 2 pages a minute speed, my highest, well, not my ultimate highest, but my highest average speed. So it was really nice. This is also, I think, a nice way for you to get into sci-fi if you're not normally into it, because the sci-fi element is our world with one twist rather than, alien races in space, this whole thing. Like, you'll recognize this world as being somewhat ours, more or less, with added technology. So if you're not used to it, sci-fi, but maybe you like YA contemporary, this would probably be the best bet to get you into sci-fi. And also, I've been reading a lot more YA sci-fi lately, and I don't hate it. I still like adult sci-fi more, will always love space operas, but I don't hate this one. So I'm happy that I read it. I gave it 4 stars. And again, this is maybe not the best if you want hardcore sci-fi, but if you're a beginner and you like YA contemporary, definitely check this out. Still closed to requests at the moment, but I'm definitely getting there. Every book I get done is another one off my list, and once I am in a good place, I'll open again and everyone will be happy, hopefully. So with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.